I mean, people kind of think of a diary as it being some kind of fluffy, you know, today the boy I fancied looked at me. But it's not.
Boy came round, like asked him to do another one.
Yeah, well, you're reflecting, and then you're reflecting on. I suppose if you keep a weekly one, you're reflecting on how you are, and it puts you in. You're really thinking about it. You're not just there's thinking and then there's thinking.
We do it in post-production. It's okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Three-Headed Hydra podcast. Today we talk about mental sharpness. Who doesn't want to be mentally sharp, mentally quick? Who doesn't want to be in a flow, focused, relaxed, and exactly. So mental sharpness can manifest itself in many different situations. It can manifest itself in sports, to be just in a flow state. It can manifest itself in conversations, and so being snappy, like extroverts. There's like an argument, extroverts against introverts, and how we process information. Like some people seem to be very fast and very reactive when they communicate, whereas others might have to think a little bit and sit down and linger over the thoughts before they can actually form their solutions. Mental sharpness while performing on stage, which is something hopefully we can get a little bit into because I did that a few times. And mental sharpness when it comes to actually getting information into your brain when you're learning, when you want to sit down and study something. And so, just to start it off, the way I like to get myself into a mental sharp state, there are different techniques depending on the situations I just described. For example, one method I use is the Wim Hof method, which I just started a few weeks ago, thanks to you guys.
Whoa.
Exactly. And I realized, that this mix of breathing techniques and cold showers really gives my system a really good kickstart, let's say. And I just turned on Siri. That was very funny. And so my mind instantly is more focused, let's say. So that's something I like to use before I maybe start studying something or before I learn something new in online courses or when I want to read or write something. Whereas when I want to perform better, I like to go for a run before I do any other physical exercise. That kind of gets me into a sharper state of mind. And there are others I would like to maybe also get into in a few minutes, but maybe you guys want to chime in and give me your 2 cents.
My 2 cents is free. Who sent?
You
sent for me. It's Eminem. See, that's mental sharpness right there. Remembering lyrics. Mental sharpness, I think, like you've hit the nail on the head with a few of the mental sharpness can help us out. I'd also say, as general overviews, and we'll get into them a bit later if we want to. Visualization is a very powerful tool. So visualization, what you do is you really, really see yourself doing something that you want to in the future. You see it, you hear it, you smell it, you taste, you use all the senses, right? And there's been tons of studies on this. The brain actually builds the neurons as if you've just had that experience. So when you're in that situation, it's like repeating something that you've already done, even though you've only been rehearsing it in your mind. It's an incredible thing. So that's a kind of mental sharpness, because you recognize this situation when it occurs, because the neurons have actually been connected in the brain. It's an amazing thing. And then also critical thinking skills would be my other general framework for mental sharpness, because any piece of information that you receive, and as we know, you get flooded with information these days through the internet, you need the tools to be able to filter out the nonsense, of which there is plenty. So critical thinking skills like logical fallacies, asking the right questions about a piece of information, knowing how to research the validity of information, that for me is paramount and sorely lacking in education, which we've seen a lot in the last few months with all of these conspiracy theories flying around when people were sitting at home bored during the quarantine. So yeah, there's lots of things that go into mental sharpness, really. What do you think, Dan?
Well, when I just gave it a quick Google and YouTube search, most of the things that came up were all about diet. But I mean, obviously, things that contribute towards mental sharpness are diet and obviously to get a good amount of sleep every night. But then there's it's interesting to talk about how many hours sleep is peak, because I know sometimes when I'm feeling mentally sharp is almost when I'm exhausted. Sometimes unexpectedly I'll have got up super early and I'll kind of start getting all this clarity of thought, and I don't know there must be some kind of science there, but that's a one-off though. I think if you're talking about trying to peak your mental sharpness once, that's a different subject to kind of all-round mental sharpness. You know, you've got to be getting enough sleep, you've got to be eating well, and exercise was the other thing that kept coming up, which I think we all agree which is probably counterintuitive if you're not an exerciser, because you think you'd end up exhausted. The opposite, you end up you feel sharp because of it.
Definitely, man. Yeah, I agree. I think we're all on the same page there. A bit of exercise in the morning just really blast you off, you know, for the rest of the day, at least the rest of the morning, you know, before the slide. But yeah, there's just such a lot that goes into mental sharpness.
Sleep, sleep is so important, but also the food, the nutrition, and I also would count vitamins and supplements to that. So when doing sports, as you know yourselves, when you sweat a lot, for example, it's important that you give your body the right nutrients afterwards or before, depending on what kind of sport you do, because otherwise you will burn out very easily.
That's what I'm finding at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm sweating like an absolute pig, and then I try and do some revision for the exam or something, you know, the jiu-jitsu exam, and I just can't think. It's very frustrating, but it's like, you probably sweat it out. All of the magnesium and potassium and whatever else just runs down your back, and you know, you don't have all of the tools that you need. So what when it says about nutrition, what kind of nutrients does it talk about, like fats, proteins? What kind of things are best for mental sharpness?
Definitely a low carbohydrate and a higher fat diet. Definitely with the sugars, I mean, you just notice the kind of crash. Well, funny enough, you don't notice it until you cut them out, and then you realise that you're not constantly. So I wonder, it's half not having the energy burst and then crash, and half I swear I just sort of want to eat more sugar, but maybe they come part and parcel. But I feel like all I can do is think of my next snack when I'm on a bit of a bad habit kind of state, which I do end up in, you know, a good once, twice a year. Like we've talked about in the fasting before, we talked about in our fasting, I kind of end up slipping into bad habits, and then all of a sudden I get quite comfy just eating sugar and sugar and sugar, and then it gets ridiculous and I have to do something about it. But I feel like you're just kind of always thinking, right, what am I going to eat? And when you get out of that habit, it kind of frees up a lot of space in your mind, and you think, wow, it's almost a waste of life, just constantly thinking about where you're going to get your next little sugar hit from.
This is why I love the 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window, because I wake up, do my Wim Hof breathing, do a bit of training, have my cold shower, and then I'm ready for work or study or whatever. I don't think about food. my mind has got so much more space on the hard drive to concentrate on other stuff.
Well, people are sad. People feel sad about that when you say that. People do. You talk a lot of people. Yeah, eating's their life, isn't it? Which I get, you know. And people just love. Especially you guys are in Italy. Jesus, that's the culture, isn't it? Yeah.
Carb city.
Yeah, you're eating the pasta.
But you get used to it when you do it constantly. When I do the 16-hour fasting thing. Before 2 or 3 o'clock, I don't even feel any urge to eat. So you know that's and definitely your mind is sharper when you do it. For me, anyway. So I'm not sure if you feel it.
I wanted to ask you, because I also thought something else that helps me to switch on, and this is backed up by a lot of studies, I believe, using music or a particular song in a particular situation to sort of trigger you into a high performance state. Because I, for example, just when I'm about to write an essay, I turn on Nuvolo Bianche by Einaudi, right? And that's my trigger song, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's a trigger. It's a trigger to actually relax myself and have that mental flexibility. And, you know, it's not like a Eminem trigger song. If I'm about to go to the gym and throw some weights around, or go for a sprinting session, that's a completely different trigger song. But for studying, it'll be the Einaudi. Do you know, because you're a musician yourself, do you know about this use of music for mental sharpness?
Oh yeah, there are actually, if you look on Spotify, for example, there are plenty of playlists without words actually, because they say that that's better for studying. And so there seems to be a correlation between music, but without words because a lot of people are put off actually, and they get distracted by if they have to read. So
all those clubs, hose and bottles put me off me applied linguistics.
There's a lot of YouTube channels which are they're called like lo-fi beats to revise to.
I've been studying recently a lot about frequency.
Yeah, go on.
Apparently frequency completely changes the energy that you release from your brain and the state that it's in. So the music at a certain frequency can really help you to get into different states, either highly agitated states or extremely relaxed states. But it's about the frequency of the music rather than anything else.
I mean, some people also use these white noise apps that create this. I think that's very similar, also using certain frequencies that apparently some people get benefits from using those and can focus better.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Another thing that you've touched on a few times, Sal, is meditation and mindfulness.
Yes.
How do you incorporate those into your mental sharpness toolkit?
Well, usually I combine it with my morning routine. And so there's now this new part of the routine, which is the Wim Hof method, the breathing. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I do the meditation right away. So that actually the breathing itself and the cold shower already get me going. But then there's the meditation. It also gives me kind of an additional layer of calm and focusedness. I mean, it depends how much time I have, of course. So either I get up very early or I don't have anything to do right in the morning. And then there are other techniques if I want to be pumped up, like raising your adrenaline, standing in front of the mirror and doing
power postures. Power poses. Yep.
Power poses, it depends what I have to do, really. Mental sharpness, for example, one thing, I read this book many years ago, so I don't remember all the details, but it's basically called the introvert advantage. And I tend to be more of an introvert person. And so one thing I always hated in conversations is that I'm not very reactive and snappy as some extroverts would be. Like, you throw words at them and they instantly translate them. And apparently there seems to be some indication that introverts, like literally the stimuli travel further pathways. And so, introverts tend to reflect more on the thoughts and form them before they then give feedback. But one thing that helped me for mental sharpness, and I learned this through the podcast especially, is actually structure my information beforehand. Yeah. So I need these tools to better formulate what I want and to better form my thoughts beforehand. And so I don't have to actually, so I don't get distracted during the conversation having to figure out where everything belongs to, because I kind of already created a structure beforehand. And that helps me really to be more focused during conversations. I'm not sure about yourself. What's your strategy? I mean, maybe you're an extrovert.
Another one, writing.
Writing, okay.
Because if you can structure your thoughts in paragraphs and see your own cognitive dissonance, because this in this paragraph completely disagrees with this, but they're both thoughts existing in my head. Well, I need to put them together and decide, where I sit on these things. Structuring your thoughts with paragraphs and being articulate in writing is a huge skill that I think, again, is lacking. We get told, I think, a lot growing up that we do writing in order to get marks. That's the main purpose of writing. It's an absolute disgrace. Writing is useful because it helps you to organize your thoughts and express yourself clearly. And that's a part of mental sharpness. Once I sit down and write something, then I realize where I disagree with myself.
Well,
in certain issues.
And that's why people keep a diary. I mean, people kind of think of a diary as it being some kind of fluffy, today the boy I fancied looked at me. But it's not.
Boy came round, like asked him to do another one.
Yeah, well, you're reflecting, and then you're reflecting on. I suppose if you keep a weekly one, you're reflecting on how you are, and it puts you in it. You're really thinking about it. You're not just this thinking. And what you were saying about when you were asking Sal about meditation, James, I was thinking of, because I don't meditate regularly, but I remember I had a kind of stint of it when I first kind of was learning about it, and I got into it, and what it gave me and I think I would claim it stuck with me since then. It wasn't because I haven't kept up with it. It wasn't a waste of time. The kind of 3 months I did of 20 minutes twice a day had a lasting impact on me. And what it enabled me to do was separate the wheat from the chaff in my head. So I'm not just clinging to thoughts. After a certain amount of energy, I kind of put myself in a bit of a state and realised, right, what really matters here. And obviously, some things matter, but a lot of what you're burning energy up, and that's what you get conscious of, where your energy's going.
Yeah.
You realise, right, I can let go of that because there's nothing I can do about that, which is often the answer. And and that frees up energy for things that are important, and that's a big contributor to mental sharpness, I'd say.
That's it. Control the controllables, no, like the Stoics say. But that's another thing. I know we keep touching on religion and never getting truly into it, but religion has a lot to say for giving people a philosophy. You don't have to tie it to a all-powerful deity, but a philosophy of some kind, I think, gives you mental sharpness because it gives you a set of values, and values are like a North Star, right? They're a North Star to follow. So it could be, for example, Stoicism, which is something that I loosely adhere to, which is basically control the controllables. If you can't control it, let it go very quickly, because every second spent on that uncontrollable is a wasted second. And I think that gives you, again, mental sharpness. I know we're sort of making the term extremely large, but when you're mindful enough to think, okay, this thing I'm worried about, is it important? Yes or no? Okay, yes. Is it in my control? No. Well, then you need to let it slide because you're wasting your time. That's it, because it's all about your focus, right? What you look at determines what you see, and you can only really look at one thing at a time. Even if 5 things are flying around, you're still just looking at one, then looking at one, then looking at one. So just being able to focus on what is important it's not just a skill, it's everything, because your thoughts determine your life experience, right? Your everyday is determined by all the little voices going on inside your head. So being able to sort through those and find out what's important, for me, is mental sharpness.
So would you agree, both of you, that there's an aspect that's basically biological, so keeping your body sharp and at the best possible state to perform accordingly, and also maybe a conceptual sharpness? That means having the tools and methods at your disposal and preparing your day and having the philosophies at hand to guide you through the day and keep your mind sharp. Sorry, did you
say biological and?
Biological and conceptual. Or
yeah.
By conceptual, I mean everything that encompasses also the philosophy that you just alluded to, and other tools and methods.
There must be. You see plenty of mentally sharp people who are out of shape, so it can't all be a physical.
Definitely
thing.
not all physical. I think conceptual or spiritual aspects are always linked to biological, though, also, right? Because if you look at the studies, the kind of chemicals that you're releasing doing certain activities, like deep meditation or yoga. I mean, at the end of the day, our experiences are a chemical, hormone release in the body. So I don't think you can divide the two up too neatly, but it all plays in. It's like a big cake mixture with a lot of ingredients. But yeah, the physical, the spiritual, the biological. If you can start to understand these things and put all these pieces of the puzzle together, then you can really start to concentrate on what you think is important.
And one thing, as an introvert, I can tell you what is very simple. A very simple method for me to become more sharp very often when I feel overwhelmed, especially, is just go into a room and lock myself up. Like Not
Thinking.
literally. I'm not looking exactly. But what I mean is basically just find a quiet spot. That's what I mean. Very often, and just take a rest for half an hour or so, or an hour, and then the mind is basically reset. And I think a lot of introverts can relate to that.
Yeah. You also need to recognize your patterns, right?
Right.
Like my pattern when I'm uncomfortable or angry is disappear. That's my pattern. So how many times do I have to do that before I realize that's not the best thing to do? So that's part of mental sharpness. I suppose it's also tied into mindfulness, actually watching your own thoughts and saying, oh, look, I think I've seen this film before. Yes, it was last week you did the same thing and you weren't happy with how that turned out. Do you think you're going to do it again now? Instead of, boom, I'm angry, run with that. Oh, you also need to be able to step back from your emotions and step back from your thoughts and observe them, and then pick the ones that you want to choose.
I've been thinking recently, maybe I kind of operate on like a 3 week, and my energy seems to peak, and then all of a sudden comes kind of on a down. Does anyone else experience that? I wonder whether you. I kind of have 2 or 3 weeks on the trot where I feel I've got all this energy, I can do whatever, and then it kind of comes to a halt all of a sudden. I don't know, man.
Sometimes
is that in cycles then? Is that a pretty consistent cycle?
But not a cycle that I could name. Maybe a diary would help me keep track of it.
That'd be interesting, yeah.
But is it related to a specific event, or is it just something that happens out of the blue? Because you can overtrain, for example, and maybe it's just a physical reaction to that.
Yeah, maybe it's that. It could be weather dependent as well. I reckon the weather.
Also, of course.
Well, it could be, man.
I'm not. Yeah, absolutely.
Those 2 weeks where you're feeling sharp could be, the sun's shining, and then the weather changes, and you think, where's all that energy I had gone? And that's gone. It's behind the clouds, man. It's a crazy
behind
thing.
the clouds.
But look, I mean, the way the practicality of that is, I mean, you might kind of sign yourself up to too many things when you're feeling energetic, and then when the energy goes, you can't handle it all, and then you're kind of stuck on a backward. But you've committed to things, so you still have to meet that demand, and then you become even more tired because you haven't got the energy to do it.
You're more tired, and then you're more frustrated because you couldn't give everything that you wanted to when you signed up, and then you're more tired because you're frustrated.
And then you think, I'm too tired, so I'm not. I'll put that off for the next couple of weeks, and then you've got the energy to do it. So maybe it is worth kind of trying to monitor yourself and seeing if you do work in some kind of cycles, and then you can not overcommit or.
I think another thing for mental sharpness is the power to say no. And I'm saying power in the best sense of the word, not tyranny. Power as in self-control and confidence to say to whoever, your boss, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your best friend, to say, look, I can't right now. I just have a lot on, and just I wouldn't be present in that moment, so it's not worth it. So let's leave it for a few days. So you can't. You need to also manage your energy, because it doesn't matter how many motivational speakers and gurus and musicians that you listen to. You're not a machine. I realize that too often. I think I'm unbeatable, and I'm not. And I get to Thursday evening and I'm smashed again. And why did you do that? Why did you do that again?
Right.
And the problem is they're saying yes to everything.
Right.
They just say no to things, and when the things that you say yes to, really razor sharp focus.
I mean, I guess we can also get a bit now into the realm of overworking yourself and burnout and the hustle and all these things. So, but I agree that they directly affect your mental sharpness, obviously. So that's definitely something that you want to take care of. By the way, lads.
I want to say that it's probably a good time to end this podcast. There we go, Sal. I know. Take that burden off your shoulders.
All right.
But yeah, that was interesting, guys. I think lots of ideas there. I think plenty of things to look at. We didn't have time for each one of those things that we mentioned is worth hours of conversation. So
we'll get to them eventually.
Useful tips. I look forward to watching this one back actually, and trying out a few more of these things.
Just to outline that, would you say, just to finalise and outline, would you say we think meditation, exercise, and dieting are all big contributors to mental sharpness? And this ties in with meditation, but being able to monitor your energies when you peak, right? And then I suppose if there was a time you needed to be mentally sharp, you could control that. So yeah, maybe those are the kind of pillars of mental sharpness.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is a conclusion from Joshua William Dennison. That's J. Dennison Plastering, the smoothest in the South.
Approved. All right, gents, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening or watching this episode of the Three-Headed Hydra podcast. It's Joshua, James, my name is Sam. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube or Instagram or both. And hit the subscribe button and share the joy, comments, and let us know what you think. What's your opinion? What are your strategies to stay mentally sharp? Let us know in the comment section below. All right, guys. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one. Why are we making these podcasts? Because 3 heads are better than 1. We'll combine our experiences and research on engaging topics to learn a bit more each time, enjoy the chat, and improve our own communication skills in the process. Innovation comes from the ability to correlate information between different realms of knowledge, and we all have very different realms of knowledge between the 3 of us.
Why the Hydra, you ask? In archetypal mythology, dragons guard piles of gold. Overcoming fears can bring great rewards. What you most need is often where you least want to look, and we won't shy away from the fire to challenge each other and reach that goal.
What's in it for you, listener? Learn, laugh and love. Get involved and join us on this adventure.